I hope you had fun messing around with linking controls and doing some math to them to do some sorcery. And with the compass, that's actually a pretty practical application. Once you can get the spacing of the letters correct, you can actually do some pretty awesome things. So in this video, we're going to talk about using variables. Variables are little numbers that you can define inside After Effects, or rather inside expressions that allow you to tweak them later or to use them multiple times inside the same expression. So let's go to opacity in this text layer. It's pretty much the same. We have it sliding up and fading in. And I'm going to alt click on the opacity and I'm going to define a variable. So let me type in here not value. We need to use a word that's not being used already. So we can't actually use value to define a variable. We can't use say position. We can't use transform because those are words that are already being used for different functionality. So let's make up our own word. It's going to be, let's say opacity value. And we're going to say equals to 25. So what happens now is that any time that we type out the word opacity value, it's going to put in 25 there. So let me go in here and I'll press enter just to add a new line. Just make some space here. And then I'm going to type opacity value. Just like that. And what's going to happen now is that our value is going to be set to 25. And now, since we're no longer referring to explicit word value in here, then it's going to ignore the keyframes and the animation, and it's just going to set it to a flat out 25. So if I change the value of this variable, say to 45, it's going to set everything to 45. Now, that's not very fun. We can just type in 45 or, it's just going to work either way. So let's add another one. Let's call this subtractor. Subtract. Just in case subtract is being used. And we'll hit equals 2. And then down here, we're going to type opacity value minus subtractor. So what will happen now is this opacity value is going to be replaced by 45. Subtractor down here is going to be replaced by 2. And so we're going to get 45 minus 2, which is going to give us 43. Let me maybe change this over here from a minus, and we can do times. Times. We can multiply it. So times, and now we get 45 times 2, which is 90, and the same values sort of apply. So if I change this to 5, it's going to do 45 times 5, which is a really high number. But unfortunately, this will not allow us to do it because opacity can only go up to 100. So that's how variables work. And you're going to use variables a lot if you're going to refer to a specific value a lot of the time. The important thing about using variables is that you should always be sure that your variable is not a word that's already in use by After Effects. So let me show you in an example. I'm going to type in here value, which we know is the value of the keyframes. We're going to set this to value equals 90. And then we'll just type in here value. And then we'll click away. And now it completely ignores this line. It's like, yo, man, what are you talking about, man? And it's going to just stick with the standard definition of value. Let's maybe use here something like transform dot opacity equals to 90. And then we'll do transform dot opacity. Same thing's going to happen. It's going to completely ignore this line because transform dot opacity already has its use. It already has functionality applied to it. So when you create these words, always make sure that you're using something, that defines, something that defines what it's doing. Just as we had done with subtractor equals 9. And then we can say value equals 25. So subtractor is our own word, but value is a word that's already being used. So if you come in here and say value minus subtractor, and we click in here, it's still going to use its own built-in value, but subtractor is still going to be applied. As you can see here, 91 is actually 100 minus 9. So don't let that kind of throw you into problems. You can actually get all sorts of errors just because you use the wrong word. So JavaScript stuff like if equals 0, if will not actually set it to 0 because if is a function. And now once it sees the word if, it actually expects the function to be defined and everything to happen. And so it's going to panic and say expected a bracket. An expression was disabled as a result of an error. So that's because it's if it's already being used. So be very careful with how you use these variables. Well, that's pretty much it with variables. Mess around and see what you can do with the variables. And in the next video, we'll take a look at how to combine these variables with another function called arrays in order to create some more complex expressions. So I'll see you in that video.